Yeah. Samir.
Yes, the Lion of Lebanon.
Samir is one of your good friends.
Absolutely.
I adore Samir. I think what I think is cool about Samir is that he's still so passionate about bodybuilding.
Oh, yes, 100%.
He's in the scene. He's so ingrained in the whole world still. To me, and I'll just start off by saying, one of the things that I have always admired about Samir is I don't know if I've ever seen someone who has such a beautiful, full muscle bellies.
Sure.
And it's almost like the quintessential component to that golden era that I think a lot of guys afterwards were really trying to shoot for. You know what I mean?
Well, he had some pretty good examples to follow behind. I know Samir's story very well. One time when he was like 15 years old, he was going to see a movie with his brother, and I forget the actor's name, but I think it was Van Cleef from like one of those Clint Eastwood type shoot 'em up movies.
Yeah.
And he chose to buy the magazine that Arnold was on, rather than go see the movie that his brother wanted to see, which starred his favorite actor.
With the money that he had.
Yeah, with the money that he had. And it was that magazine that spawned him into this world of bodybuilding. And mind you, 1983 is when I started bodybuilding. That was also the year that Samir won the Mr. Olympia.
Yes.
So two of the guys I modeled myself behind when I started, and I got my first real glimpse of what it's supposed to look like. Bob Paris, who copied Steve Reeves, was a knockoff of Steve Reeves, won the Nationals in the Universe. And then there was Samir Bannout, who peaked in the 1983 Olympia. It wasn't his first shot, but it was the one that put him in the history books, because you only have to nail it once, and he nailed it perfectly in 83. So when I'm coming up, I recognize it. Samir's 5'7", he's my size.
Yeah.
You know, Bob Paris was 6 feet, like Steve Reeves. It was not really something I could aspire to.
Yeah.
But the mannerisms and the way he performed on stage, it mixed with the way the Lion of Lebanon moved on stage, that attracted me.
I like that you call him the Lion of Lebanon. That was his name.
Because, you know, and he is a unicorn out of Lebanon, because he's the number one guy. But Samir showed that through perseverance, timing and peaking was everything. And he peaked perfectly in Munich in 1983 to win the Mr. Olympia, go down as one of the legends and the best that ever did it. He was a performer on the stage, still passionate in bodybuilding. Saw him at the Olympia this year. One of the first guys to demonstrate the Christmas tree. It's coveted because not everybody can get lean enough to see that Christmas tree. And of course, we all trained for that look, and I got it a few times in my career. But I was patterning myself after Samir. I watched the way he moved on the stage, kind of combined that with a Bob Paris and a Lila Brada, and my performance I leveled up my performance part and partial to what Samir was doing on stage in his presentation. Yeah.
What's crazy is his conditioning was so perfect that he was lean enough for you to see Christmas tree, but you don't see striations or veins or graininess. It's just pretty.
Yeah,
full.
and it was a different time, right? The criteria was a little bit different. The science wasn't there in 1983. He's one of the few guys to ever beat the greatest bodybuilder of all time in the form of Lee Haney. Lee Haney's debut in the Olympia was in 1983, and it was against Samir. Samir won that show. Lee Haney got third behind Mohamed Makaway from Egypt, and Mohamed Makaway smaller than Samir, but he was more proportionate, a little more mature.
Right.
Lee Haney was taller, still a work in progress, but Samir will forever be able to say he was one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time, and one of the only people to beat the great Lee Haney.
Right. I think similar to Frank Zane, a lot of people turn to Samir's posing to get those classic poses.
Sure.
You know, he had the posing down to a science.
Yeah, I think that bode well for him on the stage. It's also taken him all around the world, which I think is lost on the bodybuilders today, that the importance of presentation for us coming up and me copying guys like Samir, it took me all around the world. I mean, I never won the Olympia, and I didn't have to. I performed at such a higher level than my colleagues that they wanted to see this performance in Germany. They wanted to see it in Russia. They wanted to see it in Mexico and Canada. And I understood the importance of presentation, which was another component for revenue that would finance my bodybuilding career. Today, I don't think there's a single bodybuilder, with the exception of the current Mr. Olympia, Samson, that understands presentation creates opportunity. Opportunity creates revenue. It feeds the machine, and you're able to take it places. There's not very many bodybuilders after the Mr. Olympia is over that are going around performing at shows the way that Samir did, that opened the door for me to do.
And to your point, I mean, he did win the Olympia, but I don't necessarily think that winning the Olympia is the only avenue to being one of the best. I mean,
it's not, because listen, when you compete with the best, I think we talked about this, when you compete with the best, you validate that you're one of the best. Samir became Mr. Olympia because everyone was pushing him. He felt the heat of the arrival of Lee Haney in 1983 after Lee won the national championships in the universe. That gave me
chills.
Yeah. So here comes Lee Haney.
Yeah.
Samir's been in the Olympia. He knows this upstart's coming. Yeah. He's going up against the magical Egyptian from Canada by way of Egypt, Muhammad Makaway.
Right.
He knows he's going to be a performer at the Olympia. He has to elevate his game. All those Olympia champions are champions because of the people that were pursuing them. And I was in hot pursuit. Moment. Yeah, I was in hot pursuit of every Mr. Olympia winner. And that helped me become the person I became on that stage, because I was chasing those guys. But they knew we were chasing them, and they had to push harder. So it does, the challenge does give way to champions like that.
Man, what an exciting win.